Hello, this is Brother Teacher. Uh, I've been putting off responding to this for quite a while, but on some videos that I have published in recent years, uh, I have received some negative comments outside of a plethora of great comments, I should say. And the negative comments, for the most part, people are saying that I am a Bruce Lee fanboy. And for those that may not know, I not responded, but I put up a video about uh, Bruce Lee's ability as a martial artist, which is what was in question. And from some traditional martial artists that were supporting a certain individual, they responded to the video. They gave their viewpoint, and there are people who, from my observation, are not even martial artists at all, who gave their viewpoints as well. And I have been labeled along with people who have taken my side of the fence, so to speak, as far as the argument about Bruce Lee's validity as a real fighter. They've been attacked as well, but it's okay. Such is life. And I've been called a Bruce Lee fanboy, as I say, or somebody who's up Bruce Lee's behind, and all of the other little colorful things that they've said about me and the people who agree with my particular side of the issue. And I'll be a Bruce Lee fanboy if that's what you call me. It's okay, but it doesn't change the facts. Uh, First of all, let me preface anything that I'm going to say from this point forward by saying this first. Uh, I have never said anything to attack any martial arts instructor. I've never said anything to discredit any martial arts instructor or any martial artist for that matter. I only have made statements concerning statements that were made already or issues, and I was giving just my honest viewpoint as we all are entitled to do so. Now, with that said, I have also said, if you watched my body of work, all of the videos that I have done prior to this one, you will see that I have always given credit to the martial arts community, of which I am a part of and have been for most of my life. And traditional or otherwise, uh, there are many martial arts masters who are as good as Bruce Lee was, or even who are better than Bruce Lee was in this present day as I'm speaking, and probably during the time that he lived. So, what's the issue, brother teacher? You might add. The issue is that people take things out of context. They read a caption, they read a title, and they begin to listen to the video, and then they stop right there. And then they jump on this tangent about how Bruce Lee is not credible and that he's just an actor only, without reading the context of the whole uh, video, as it were. Now, when I post a video, I think it through. I already know who the audience is, who the potential audience is, and I do know that there are people who are going to respond in a not so reasonable fashion. So, with that being said, it is what it is. You cannot open up the airways for the general public to come in and not receive some of the backlash from people who have issues themselves. So I say again, there were people during the time that Bruce Lee lived that were as good and or better than he was, and even in today's time. I have never made any statement saying that Bruce Lee was better than any human being in the martial arts. I've never made that statement. But as far as he's concerned, during the time that he occupied the space he did on planet Earth, Bruce Lee was the greatest martial artist known in our lifetime. Now, why is that, you might add? The world said so. But just because the world said so doesn't make it so. Well, if we look through objective glasses, not rose colored glasses, if we look objectively at who Bruce Lee was and what he did, and if we study him from beginning to end, I'm pretty sure if we are honest with ourselves, we will know that he was an exceptional human being who studied martial arts. Now, as I stated before, there were others during his time that were as good or better than. So why did they not receive the accolades or the attention that Bruce Lee did? It is because many people don't want to make their studies and their training and their craft public. There are many individuals in Asia, especially, that don't want to publicize their martial arts. They are happy just to train and feel good about the fact that they're doing something that they enjoy as a lifetime study, as it were. And there are those who are even in remote parts of Asia and even the world who study and train in martial arts that don't want public attention, who are as good or who were as good or better than Bruce Lee during his time. And that's just the way it is. Everyone doesn't want to publicize what they do. Now, it just so happens that Bruce Lee was not that individual. Bruce Lee wanted to express himself, as he said in his videos. I want to express myself through the martial arts. That's what martial arts to me is honestly expressing myself through martial arts. And he did just that. He expressed himself physically, physiologically, if you will, and through motion picture, he expressed his martial arts. And through teaching, he expressed his martial arts. And through his writings and his books and his manuscripts and so forth, he expressed his martial arts. And now he has a legacy. He's left behind hundreds of thousands of students, if not millions, of fans across the world today as a result. And we can't refute this, and we cannot deny this, that he is the most celebrated martial arts figure of all time, regardless of what anyone in today's time says. Oh, he was just an actor. He was not a real fighter. Who has he ever beat? Who did he ever fight? When did he ever compete in a tournament? Those things don't make you a fighter. They don't make you a great martial artist. There are great martial artists that have never fought. Period. Never fought. Now, is it not true? Now, help me if I'm wrong. Is it not true that those of us who call ourselves instructors, irrespective of what martial arts style or system that you study or train in, don't you teach your students not to fight first? Don't you teach them to avoid fighting first? Isn't that the first thing when they walk in your dojang, your dojo, or your kun? Don't you teach them that fighting is not the way to avoid a fight at all costs, but if you have to fight, then you do what you have to do? Now, if your answer is yes, that you do teach your children and your adult students this, then what if they never have a fight because they're following the tenets of their martial arts system? or the tenets of the martial arts worldwide. So if they're following this, you can't classify them as the greatest fighter in the world because they haven't had a real fight, because this is what you're teaching them not to do, is to fight unless it's necessary. So you don't want to have 100% of all of your student attendees having fights just to prove that they are fighters. That would be asinine. That would be ridiculous. So would you say that they're not capable of fighting just because they haven't had a fight? Of course not. So do you see how ridiculous that statement is? Who has this person ever fought? And you trying to use that as leverage for whether or not they was a legitimate martial artist or not. You know, what is so often time disturbing to me is that we always want to try to compare a person to us. And if they don't compare to us, then for some reason they're not valid. They're not legitimate. I have found that so many traditional arts, not all of them, but so many traditional arts, because you decide to study more than one art and then you define yourself as that thing, the traditional guys want to say that what you're doing, because it's not cut from the same traditional cloth as them and their teachers, that what you're doing is not valid and that it is of no use. But once you prove it to the world that it is valid and that it is of substance, it doesn't change the mind of the traditional guys. They still are stuck in their mold, so to speak. They can't step outside of the box. And that's unfortunate. Bruce Lee was one of those guys that stepped outside of the box, and he became well renowned for doing so. What the problem really is that there's a lot of people still stuck in the box because they need to have this organization behind them to validate them. They need to have some governing body behind them to validate them, and they can't validate themselves. And that's the true travesty. It's just that simple. This is Brother Teacher. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll get back.